So tonight, President Trump speaks straight to the American people in a prime time address to sell his economic message. Welcome to the Big Money Show. I'm Taylor Riggs, along with my co-hosts, Gaspo, Charlie Gasparino, Brian Brenberg, Jackie DeAngelis, and with us for the entire hour, Fox Business contributor, Jonathan Hoenig.
Thank you.
Great to have you.
My pleasure.
This is going to be interesting.
Buckle up.
This could be interesting.
So the White House says the theme is simple. The best is yet to come. First up, the administration officially launched that website for those baby Trump accounts. The White House is also pointing to labor data that reflects a major shift. 2.7 million native-born Americans gained jobs in 2025. While nearly 1 million foreign-born workers lost employment. That message, this is America first. So tonight's address is not just about continuing to pitch tax relief and deregulation as the foundation for growth, but also about setting expectations for the coming year. Jonathan, what do you want to hear tonight?
Well, I think the president has a big task ahead of him because the truth is that many people aren't feeling a strong economy. I mean, it's getting record low numbers, around 36% approval when it comes to the economy. You're also seeing a lot of everyday Americans, frankly, struggling. Still credit card balances up there near all-time highs. So I'd like to see some semblance of compassion for everyday Americans who maybe just simply aren't feeling the exuberance that the president has alluded to over and over again. He's giving himself an A+++. I'm not sure many Americans would feel the same.
So, Brian, how do you toe that line between good economic growth, maybe green shoots on the horizon, but yes, I understand that maybe you as the normal consumer doesn't feel it just this moment, but hold on because next year looks good. How do you kind of toe that line?
I think you cut through all that. That's a lot to do, and he'll try to do some of all that. But to me, the thing I think people want to hear, and what do I know, but I think they want to hear, you are my priority. Your pocketbook is my priority. I've done a lot this year. I've been on the international stage. We've solved wars. We're down in, near Venezuela now. We got a lot of things going on. The border's closed. All good. But you are my priority. Your paycheck is my priority. Your job is my priority. And that's what I'm going to do this year. When I was in high school, I was a running back, okay? Believe it or not, that's right. This has a point.
Bury the lead?
This has a point here, okay? And
roll the tape.
Can we show the highlight? It's only
little chocolate
minutes.
donuts, I bet. Right,
I trained on little chocolate donuts. Why, it was so good. Thank you. And my coach used to say to me, when I thought things were going good, I used to dance a little bit. I'd get the hand off, and instead of, I would just dance. I'd kind of look for the hole. And my coach would say, stop dancing, put your head down, and run forward. And I think that is what the American people want out of the president. That he can run the ball really well. Run the ball forward, get yardage for people who want to see higher pay, better jobs, et cetera.
Jackie, one thing I liked yesterday when we were talking with Marcus Lemonis is he's just mentioned cash flow. Do you have more money coming in than you have going out? We could talk about the no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security. That all sounds great, but at the end of the day, do I look at my budget at the end of the year and say, I had more money coming in this year, maybe higher wages or whatnot, than I had going out? Or is that flipped because we've talked about some prices going up?
I think that in January, if you file your tax return, you might feel that way, but you may not feel that way right at this moment. I think the president is looking at it this way. He is America's CEO. He's a businessman. This is time to give a yearly update to the shareholders of the company and explain what they have accomplished, what they have done in the last year, and also what the path is going forward. So, Taylor, I think he's going to talk about the prices of things that he's brought down. There are some grocery items on that list. There are gas prices as well. Now the average is well under $3 a gallon. And in some states, it's even lower than that with a two handle, closer to the $2 level. So I think he's going to tout the accomplishments that they have been successful with, that they were able to work on, quickly and clearly. And then he's going to admit that there are certain aspects he's got to fix. And, I rather have more transparency than less. So some people are asking, why is he taking a victory lap? Why is he doing this? This is a good time to reflect as we head into the holidays, look at the year behind us and think about moving forward. Jonathan, I think
It's probably not a victory lap, though.
Yeah, but I think that he is pretty compassionate when it comes to the issue of the economy. I don't think he's gaslit the American people. When he gives himself a AAA+, he's doing that because he feels he has set the building blocks to reap dividends, even if they come a little bit later. And we've got to give him a little more time than less than a year.
Nobody's giving him more time. I mean, I think most Americans are not, because they're sick of the prices being. The fact that prices have never come down, wages haven't kept up with the prices that went up under Biden. I will say this, I'm the old guy here, right? So I remember whip inflation now. That was.
I'm not going to make a joke about it.
You can, please.
Nope.
I'm old. I'm old. I'm old. So I was a kid. Gerald Ford, who just had replaced Richard Nixon, had this whole campaign to make people feel better about inflation called whip inflation.
He called inflation public enemy number one at the time.
Remember, he starts this campaign. There were buttons.
Right.
I remember. I told my father, "Go, what is this?" He goes, "I know."
You should have worn your button today.
And then it didn't work. And then Jimmy Carter came into office. Right, he defeated Ford, not by a lot, but defeated him, and gave the malaise speech about how we're in this malaise, that we need to come out of it. We're Americans. It was all this jingoistic BS, right? None of this stuff ever works. Reagan comes in, says some very powerful things, but does some powerful things. Cuts marginal taxes, cuts regulation. By that time, inflation was still high, interest rates were still high, but he was telling people we're setting the building blocks for that to happen. There was real policies that were going to build.
Could you not argue Trump has done real policies?
Here's the problem that his real policies would cause, in my view. The tariffs caused the fact that we have sticky inflation. And if you talk to average people. Really?
Is that debatable?
No, it's not debatable. It's obvious. And it's why it's at around 3%. And it may come down. I don't know. I mean, who knows? This is a dynamic multi-trillion-dollar economy. But, when you talk to average people, rich people speculate their way out of this, right? Mm-hmm. Markets are up. What do they
buy
care?
assets.
They buy assets. Stocks are up. Houses are up. Obviously we have a little correction in AI, but other stuff is up. Average people, average 401k, I keep saying it till I'm blue in the face, $138,000. Not that much. The mean, 50% below. Not a lot. They're not benefiting from the stock market, whatever's going on in the stock market. They are getting hammered by a tax, a regressive tax known as inflation, which is now at 3% on top of the already high prices. So I think one way the president can come out of this is, to channel a little Larry Kudlow and Art Laffer and do something bold. I don't know if he will, like cut the payroll tax. $2,000 checks sounds like, that to me is desperation.
You need congressional approval, though, for just cutting payroll tax?
I don't know.
Right?
I'm just saying that have an economic agenda that's pro-growth.
I think he's had one, though. That's
what taxes has he cut?
The
None.
big, beautiful bill.
No, that was not a
year.
cut. That was an extension.
Social Security, overtime.
It's not.
Expensing.
These are not big ticket items.
Expensing for
they don't.
Hold on. Let me
They are
square
not
that.
big ticket items. What we need now is a big, beautiful tax cut. Right. To infuse this economy.
Well, they were talking about policy announcements that he might make tonight. He might touch
Maybe he'll
on
do
that.
that.
Could surprise us.
I also just want to bring up the point that under Reagan, even with the building blocks that you mentioned, it took roughly 2 years to get inflation in a more manageable place.
You do remember interest rates were at I checked last night, it was like 19%. It was pretty wild. Fed funds rate at 19%.
That was Volcker.
That was Volcker. And by the way, and the Reagan administration was going nuts. I do remember I was a freshman in college. They were saying supply side would deal with inflation. Volcker never bought the supply side argument. And then inflation did come crashing down in late 2082, early 83, somewhere around that time.
Yeah, because in 84, Reagan
won. Big
decimated his opponent.
Now he decimated, but
but that was 84, not 82.
I know.
82 was
but
not 84.
The Republicans lost the Senate.
And that inflationary expansion took basically about 10 years in total. The inflation that peaked in the early 1980s started in the early 1970s.
Right, with stagflation and
the deregulation that you attribute to Reagan actually started under Carter. Yeah, Carter.
So
hold on.
Reagan extended that. Yes, Carter was big on deregulation. I know that. But my point is, we need policies. And I don't think $2,000 checks It just strikes me as desperation.
Bread and
And if you
circuses?
keep, and by the way, if you
But I
keep
think you're discounting.
If you
I
keep
think you're-
patting yourself on the back,
You know what?
it's always
Mission
always
accomplished?
Yeah,
But shouldn't
it never
he
works.
get credit on energy? Shouldn't he get credit on shutting the border day one? Nobody is coming into this country.
Well, it's not me
illegally
to give
right
him
now.
credit.
Shouldn't
It's
he
the average
get
American.
credit for deregulating,
Well, you know,
for
talk to the
bringing
polls.
manufacturing back, for
Jackie.
shoring up foreign policy?
Okay,
I
what-
mean, you're just making it sound
No,
like
wait
he
a
did
second.
nothing.
Wait a second. You're making it sound like the American people are in some sort of psychosis right now. I'm telling you, this is what polls are saying. He is not killing it, let's face it, and I'm being generous here, on the economy. Now, are
I
you saying
think
that
that
you're not
he-
selling it enough for him?
Yeah, no, I
The
think
media
that he
is like
thinks he's got a messaging
we've
problem.
we've sort of did a little hypnosis on the American public, the American media,
You
by
gotta
making
let her
us feel
speak and
horrible.
finish.
I think
No, but
he
I'm just
thinks he
saying.
has a messaging problem, which is why he's been hitting the road, which is why J.D. Vance has been hitting the road, why they're taking the reins away from somebody like Scott Bessent, who is very, very smart, but maybe perhaps not as dynamic in getting the points out, to try to tell the American people that, you also say 3% inflation that's sticky. What about Biden's 9.1%
Then
inflation?
it came down. Well, I'm not.
I mean,
of course.
that's actually what
Of course,
got us here.
but remember, he ran on, I'm going to bring wages up, and I'm
Which
going
they are.
By about 3%,
Yeah.
which is basically equivalent to inflation.
Well, but remember the
So we're-
former
so
PCE.
you're stuck. You're
Well,
stuck
we
at
could
this.
do this all day.
But
Let
I'm
me
just-
just leave you with one data point because we don't have all day. Loving the debate. Hold on. And we have no time. Quickly. Confidence in the economy hits a 4-year high for investors and executives, according to quarterly surveys on businesses with revenue over $1 billion conducted between November 14th and December 8th. This is from Deloitte. 200 CFOs say that, the highest going back in at least 4 years.
Executives.
And
of big
stop cutting me
companies,
off.
too.
I understand.
Executives.
But my question is, when does that trickle down into hiring, into wages, into people like me who are invested in the market, right? If executives feel it, is that not the starting point to then it trickles down into the rest of the economy?
I think confidence.
Hopefully.
You hope so.
Yeah, and I think confidence is key. I mean, Charlie, to your point, one of the elements of tariffs that's so difficult for those big executives is trying to make plans. How can they plan 6 months, a year, 5 years into the future? How would they build a multi-billion-dollar plant unknowing what the tax situation is going to be 6 months down the line? So if the president could perhaps give some
Or
semblance
do they just
of
lay
security.
people? Or do they just lay people off to make their margins?
Right.
I'm glad I didn't label this segment as jolly because all of you are not
I don't
jolly,
think it was
Gaspo.
balanced. I think it was very balanced.
I just,
So
I'm
quickly,
praying.
surprise
us tonight.
I'm praying for Larry Kudlow to transform his brain to Donald Trump's brain and for something to come out of his mouth pro-growth. And it's not going to happen.
Trump always has a surprise. I think
maybe.
we'll see something tonight that'll move the future.
I hope you're right.